Hey everybody, welcome to FEMMES LRG presents Femininity and whatever we want to talk about. I'm January.
And I'm Marz.
And today we're actually going to jump back into the second half of Jerrod Carmichael because, it's just been crazy. We've been trying to figure it out, but we're going to recap and we're going to get into some more details. I may just be like a crazy deep researcher, but I feel like I've gotten close to figuring him out. So yeah, we're going to see how that goes.
If anyone has, January has.
I've been on this, man. I felt like, you know that meme of that white guy in front of the board and he's like going crazy.
Always Sunny? Yeah.
Yeah, that was me for a month. Trying to figure this man out, watching all his interviews, like
Miles,
connected. It was so bad. I'm like, I could not rest, but once I finished the outline, I was like, I feel good. Yeah. But anyway, we're going to get into that. But first, what are our topics for today, Marz? What are we talking about?
All right, so this first one, I don't know if you've seen, like, the whole Chipotle thing. Like, obviously, it's no news to anyone that the portions over time have gotten much smaller compared to the price continuously inflating every year. There was this one creator that I was following, like, a couple years back on not YouTube, TikTok, and it was just them, like, every single day specifically speaking to the CEO being like, just use a measuring cup, just use this type of spoon, just use that type of spoon, like, and he was like relentless with it. But now it's gotten to the point where I guess someone figured out that there was some hack because some poor store manager told their employees, allegedly, that if someone's recording you to like load their bowl up, like load it up. So now there's all these people going in with their phone like this at the front while they're filling the bowl up so that they can get a little bit of extra rice, a little bit extra this, a little bit extra that. Listen, inflation is hitting all of us. Have you seen any of this?
I've seen it. I remember when I first watched it, I was like, wow. But you know what? This is what these corporations get for being cheap. And how many times have we gotten E. coli from Chipotle? Something needs to be done. So
my whole thing is, right, I never want to be on the side of the corporation. However, as someone who has worked in food service for most of their life, you guys are putting these workers through hell right now.
That is true.
You're putting them through hell. At the end of the day, okay, listen, you're paying $12 for a bowl. What if we reconsider? Okay, they ain't nothing doing back. There's nothing that they're doing in that kitchen back there that you can't do in your kitchen. Have you considered making some rice and beans and some chicken and chopping up some lettuce? Have we considered that before you go up to that counter like this, over between that panel of glass? Have you considered maybe just boiling some water and making some rice and cooking some beans and some chicken? There's people right now on TikTok that used to work for Chipotle that are like giving them like all the recipes so that people don't have to keep going back to Chipotle and be pissed off with the workers at the front. These people at the front ain't got nothing to do with it. And honestly, most of the time, if you say, hey, can I get a little more? They're not going to charge you extra. Now, if you're trying to get double meat and this, that, and the third, they're going to charge you. But I've never had an issue. Just be nice. Just be nice. But they're sitting there. I saw this video. This dude had a whole crew, like a whole camera crew. Like, it's getting... These people don't deserve that. These are like 16, 17-year-olds just trying to make a little bit of money. You know what I'm saying?
That's like, so real.
They don't deserve this. And so I just really needed to say that because I promise you, whatever you're paying for that bowl, a bag of rice ain't no more than like, what? A bag of rice ain't that much. Beans is very cheap.
Yeah.
Chicken, you can get whole pack of chicken for $12. Like, I really... So I really needed to talk about that. But yeah, I'll send a video to Miles and he can put it in for reference because it's getting out of hand, y'all. It's getting out of hand. Like, it's no fast food is ever that serious. The other topic that I wanted to talk about is Northwest at the Hollywood Bowl. I really need to get into this.
I saw this.
I desperately need to get into this. So What did you think when you saw that?
So when I first saw it, and I saw her up in that outfit, sorry, I want to put a disclaimer out that she's a kid. I'm not blaming her. She just being her best self.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure it was her mother's doing of why she's on stage.
Yeah.
But I just was like, when I saw her just like up there not caring, just like, hey, I'm here. I'm like, if you're not your daddy's child, I don't know what else. I was like, it was like amusing because she's just so funny. Like, I can't hate her. But then also I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, why is she on stage in this onesie?
So I agree. I completely agree. I lost it. She's adorable. Everything that I'm about to say has nothing to do with North and everything to do with her mother and that family. I love that she carries that confidence of her father. I feel like she's like all of his best qualities. However, this is more of a topic about like nepotism.
Yeah.
I was watching this other YouTuber / he's on like every platform, comedian, Kev on Stage. He has a podcast called Here's the Thing, and he was talking about it with Angel, and he was saying, listen, if my son, if either of my kids wanted to get an acting role or whatever, and I was in the position to push them ahead, I'm obviously going to do it. And from the parental standpoint, I completely understand that. I would probably do the same. He was like, the life is not fair. Fair is for corn dogs and carnival rides. And I was like, period. However, what I would have wished is that she would have put her in maybe one singing class. Maybe one. You can have a dream. Dreams are beautiful, and if I have to believe that to some degree she must have really, really wanted to do it. I don't think that her mother would just like put her on stage like that. She must have really wanted to. But I beg and I pray and I wish that she would have like had some sort of. There's not a singing teacher in the world that would have let that girl get up there and do that screaming and hollering like she did throughout that entire song. There's not a teacher in the world. I know she hasn't been to one class. She went up there with just the love of the Lion King and the confidence of her father alone. No training. She didn't even know when her cue was to leave. Did she even make it to a dress rehearsal? Like, I just miss the old school nepotism. You know, I have no problem. Like, obviously nepotism is bad, but some of my favorite comedians, actresses, musicians are products of nepotism. Tracee Ellis Ross, Maya Rudolph, Willow Smith. Those are all nepo babies, but they earned it. They earned it. Their parents weren't just gonna put them into push them to the head of a casting or make sure that they got an audition if they knew they weren't gonna be good. And that's all I wish. Is I desperately wish that her mother would have just put her in one or two singing classes before she got on that stage, because now she's gonna have to look back at that, and now everybody is talking about her, and she's at that age. She's the same age as Blue. Like, they're on the internet. They may not see everything that's said, but they see a lot of it. Like Blue, when she first got out on stage, they're like maybe a year apart or something like that. Like, they see what people say. They're on the internet now, and so I just wish you wouldn't put her out like that. But also, what amazes me is like, not a single one of them has a lick of talent. I won't speak for North, because apparently she's like an incredible painter. I haven't seen it. I don't know what her social medias are. That's what everybody's been saying on Twitter. Like, I wish they would like pour into this rather than like try and force her to be on stage. But like, not really a single one of them can sing. Not a single one of them can act or dance. Even the one that's a model is not very good. Like, that just fascinates me. What were your thoughts?
I wasn't as concerned with the singing, more so with the dancing, because I just really was like, did she even go to practice? Did they just literally like, okay, we're gonna drop you off today, North, you're gonna do this? And like, I feel like they're just setting her up for failure, like, because I think she really could do a good job if she like applied herself or wanted to do it. And I think if it's not fair to her.
Class. If she had a coach, she could come to the house, that big old house.
like wouldn't you want your kid to know what it feels like to accomplish something and be proud of themselves and work hard and teach them like, oh, like you do this, you work hard and this will come of it. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. Maybe singing and dancing just isn't her thing. I would love to see her paintings if this is true, because that's like amazing. But yeah, I think it's definitely Nepo babies. I think the old school Nepo babies would be embarrassed. They didn't want to embarrass their family. But if your family isn't really famous for anything, can you really embarrass them? Like, they don't have any talents. Like,
they really don't.
What can you be like, oh, my mom was this, so I gotta be great at this? There's nothing besides influencing, and she does that effortlessly. All she gotta do is just show up, and she already like doing great. So,
and she's a businesswoman. Like, I don't know. I it's just natural ability as far as the arts, like performing arts. None of them have that. None of them were born with that, and that's okay. But yeah, it upset me at first, but then I remember that she's a child. But then I like came back around, and it's like, but why didn't she want her to like be great? I don't know. That it was bothering me, but I really need to talk about it. And then my last topic, but then also January has a topic. Trump guilty on 34 counts. What does it mean, though? What does it really mean to us? Because apparently he can still run.
Which is actually insane.
What a silly country we live in.
It's not silly. It's on purpose. This is terrible on purpose. But it's just like, go on, friend. I'm not gonna cut you off. It pisses me off. It really does.
That's my exact point. Like, convicted felons cannot
vote.
But you can run for president. Apparently, the only prerequisites you need to have to be president of the United States is be at least 34 or 35 years old. I forget which one. Be born in America and have lived in America for at least 14 years. That's it. You don't need a degree. You don't need to take no kind of test. You don't need however many years of community service or this, that, and the third. You don't need any of those things. Yeah. You just need to be an American, a born American, have lived in America for 14 years, and be at least 35 years old. That's it. You can have all the convictions in the world, 34 to be exact. You can have all of these allegations against you, all these different baby mamas, and also be 99 years old.
It's actually, like, I think the age insane. Is what gets me the most. The age and the fact that he's a convicted felon. Like,
convicted. On all counts.
I'm hoping that maybe it slows down the campaign trail for him, but I don't think it will.
His base is unwavering.
They're crazy.
There's nothing that's going to stop. And he's leading, like, by a lot on, like, the Republican front. There's no other candidate that's even close. Yeah. Like, he's the candidate. That's all they got. That's all that they have to offer is that man.
We really need to study, like, the brain chemistry of Trump supporters, like, on some real stuff. Like, really just have some clinical research, because I just don't understand. I don't.
It's like he's Jesus. Like, he's their unwavering faith is not dissimilar to, like, devout Christians. Like, it's actually so crazy. Sick. So, yeah, he's guilty. We knew he did those things, but it apparently means nothing in the grand scheme. I saw that I remember I have a group chat with my mother and my sisters, and they were blowing it up. Oh my God, he's good. But then I looked into it and I was like, oh, it doesn't even mean anything. I thought that meant we were
it doesn't even matter.
I thought we were free of at least one evil beast. We still have to deal with both of them. So it was a brief moment of joy.
Yeah.
Slight relief that there's some faith left in the justice system. But ultimately, I guess we're still screwed.
We're screwed. I never had faith in the justice system, so at least I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. Which is fair.
You gotta laugh or keep crying.
You gotta laugh or we'll cry.
Well, I appreciate those topics, Marz. I appreciate it. I only have one topic before I get into the topic of Jerrod.
Yes.
And that is Caitlin Clark and her experiencing that hard foul by Kennedy Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I've been watching it all day and like I'm blanking, but basically Kennedy Carter is on the Chicago Sky, and Caitlin Clark is on the Fever. They played each other the other day. I think it was on Sunday or Saturday. I watched the game, and like, mind you, the whole time, like, if you watch Caitlin Clark, she likes to push off. She likes to make these big fouls, but when it happens to her, she flops, right? I mean, that's a choice.
Since college, bro.
Since college,
I've seen the videos.
She's done it, right? So then, like, you know, she's come into the league and, like, she's been experiencing a lot of harder hits. But part of it is because it's, like, it's elevated. Like, every single elevation of the game, like, from high school to college to the pros, it's a different level. Yeah. So, like, if you get into the pros, like, yeah, they're going to be more physical with you. So, her and Kennedy Carter going back and forth pretty much kind of like here and there the whole game. And then Kennedy Carter, like, goes into her, like, shoves into her on a play where she didn't even have the ball. Like, it just really was uncalled for.
It was
but
flagrant.
She felt, it was a flagrant. They ended up upgrading the call later on.
Mm-hmm.
But literally, bro, everybody went crazy. All these men were like, men were like, oh my gosh, why are y'all bullying your best player? She bringing so many eyes to the game. You don't want to get her injured, blah, 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 or dirty plays, blah, blah. And I'm just like, bro, like, one thing that's always frustrated me about sports in general is the great white hope that there always happens at every level, especially if they align more with whiteness and blackness. Because I mean, like, if you look at Diana Taurasi, she's always been big, but like, I don't think, like, compared to how they're acting about Caitlin, like, it's just different. And I feel like it's because Diana, like, is like more inclined and adjacent and like cool with like the community and it's not problematic. Like, Caitlin, bro, like, I just was like, why are y'all caping for this white woman? Like, it's so weird that, like, instead of saying, hey, these are really other great players who are just playing hard, it's like, oh, y'all are jealous. Mind you, I don't hear this going on in men's sports, in the NBA and pro sports, when really it has to do with femphobia. It has to do with women are too emotional and they're jealous and it's catty and all this stuff, and that's not what it's about. Like, if I'm a competitor and I've been in the game and this rookie's coming in, I'm not going to bully them, but I'm going to let them know who runs it. Like, I'm going to be competitive. You're not beating me. So you're essentially telling people and the league, oh yeah, y'all need to stop this and prevent this. So, because this is the person who's bringing you eyes. It's actually really disrespectful to the other people that have been making sure that the WBA gets to this point. Like, yes, there's more eyes because of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, but they are not the only reason why there's the eyes are on it like it is now. Like, it's been a progression to get to this point. And also, like, Caitlin Clark be fouling. Like, she literally be pushing people like terrible fouls, but it's just like we keep trying to like align with this great white hope in the hopes that, like, oh, if we just like make sure they're good, then we'll be good. No, like, she needs to play better. Maybe she's being exposed. Like, has anybody considered that maybe like this is just tougher for her than it was when she was in college? Now, I'm not saying she's not gonna ever rise to the occasion, but I do think it's ridiculous that like this same empathy is not being given to the majority demographic who runs the WBA, which is black women. Why are you portraying black women in this light? I think it's deeper than people think. And for cisgendered straight black men to be caping for this white woman like this is despicable and needs to be interrogated.
Weakest link. Yeah, every single time. It's so embarrassing. And then did you see how Stephen A was on First Take with Shannon and that woman, Monica McNutt? And she finally said it. Like, they act like as if this covers that they're doing is supposed to be like, oh, you should be so grateful. You could have been talking about the WNBA. Yeah. Wow. And then he essentially doubled down. Like, it's so embarrassing. Like, there has to be a better way. I don't even understand why this conversation is happening still. Like, I really thought, and I saw a tweet about it, like, when their college, like, finals championship was going on.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, man, once they get to the league, oh my goodness, this whole rivalry is gonna boom the WNBA. And now all we're doing is talking about how everybody's hating on Caitlyn. Who's that other blonde white girl that's in the league right now? She's a rookie as well, I think. Or
Kate Martin, I think.
She did a speech at the ESPYs that like shined light on.
Paige Beckers, but she's not.
Yes.
She's not there yet. Mm-hmm.
Oh, she's not there yet, but she's
still in college.
Yeah, like she did a speech talking about, you know, we need to focus on the people that made this league great, and notice how nobody hates on her. Like, nobody has beef with her. Like, it's the same thing that like Taylor Swift does, where it's like, oh, everybody's attacking me. Obviously, Caitlyn's not saying this, but like she's not coming to the defense of any of the players. She's not. Like, when Angel was asked about any like fouls that were against her, she's like, I'm not expecting any of these people to play softly with me or to be nice to me. Like, this is the game. Like, I came in, I know what it is. Like, they don't have to like be nice to me. Like, I get it. But with her, it just feels like she is not really trying to defend any of the other players. She's just like completely silent.
Yeah, I mean, because like even the way I feel like played in college, it wasn't giving team player for real. It was just giving more individual. But I mean, like, when you're a shooter the way she is, like, her shot's amazing. Like, she's really she's good. But like, I also feel a hint of selfishness there. But then also, like, we don't know her personality. Like, I honestly, like, in a weird way, I feel bad for her because she's like been made to be the poster child of all this stuff, and like she just wants to come and play, but also like you said, she's not really speaking out against it. And I feel like it's intentional. Like, you can speak up and say, hey, like, this, I'm actually okay, but it's giving a hint of like you feel away, but you're not gonna say anything, and you don't mind this attention like this. So yeah, anyway, I know she's been going through a lot, but yeah, that's how I felt about that. The reason I even wanted to talk about it was because of Stephen A. And it was crazy because I think when he was getting upset, it reminded me of like when like white people in power and they're like, hey, you're like, hey, like, you know, you still don't do this, and this, and like, well, I brought you on here, and I know Don Staley, and I know that, like, but that's not, like, but still, you could do more with your platform. It's lazy, and it's like, especially with men, like, how did the conversation go to, I gave you this opportunity, or I've done this and I've done that, instead of hearing like, hey, I'm just saying that it's not fair that you're portraying black women in this light, and you're not even talking about the basketball with women. You're talking about the quote unquote cattiness when they're just actually being physical. So yeah, I was really upset about that today, so I had to talk about it.
I really hope we can move on from this period and just let these girls play the way they let the guys play. Like,
yeah, me too.
It's so lame. I hate that this became like the whole like more attention is on poor Caitlyn. Let Caitlyn play. Caitlyn's the reason why everybody's making all this money.
It is actually so ignorant. Tired. But what do we expect? What do we
men.
Expect? They don't even finish books. They don't even finish sentences. Like, what do we expect? Sorry.
It's embarrassing. Weakest link. Sorry about it. Not you though.
LOL. But yeah, y'all, that was the topics. Those were the topics for today. So now we're gonna get into this because I went ham on this. So we have a lot to discuss. It's a lot going on. If you saw my notes, you'd be like, what in the heck? But yeah, we basically we are trying to get to the root of Jerrod.
Yes.
Who is he? What motivates him to make some of the most cringiest stuff I've ever seen? But it's not even a good cringy. It's just like a, why am I seeing this cringy? And I'm gonna I'm gonna dig into why that is. So we left off on episode 4 with the road trip with his dad. So now we're going to episode 5, and it's basically focused on Jerrod's relationship with his old friend, his best friend named Jamar Neighbors. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to interject, rewatching our last episode where we swore that man was queer.
That's not fair. And he did.
The first thing out of his mouth, I'm not gay.
I mean, to be fair, I think we might be close. I don't know.
We swore, we clocked him so bad. We're like, oh my god, finally black queer representation in his life. No.
Wrong
answer for it.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I just had to say that.
No, you're good, because I was going to say that. We had to make a correction because last episode we just knew.
Correction,
we
asterisk.
We were like, okay, yeah, he might be talking to a queer black brand. We excited. Nah, not only is this man not black, not queer, but he is actually pretty homophobic and probably transphobic. It just... the way he just had to keep pushing away. I'm not gay. I'm not gay. I'm not gay. I'm not gay. I'm like, okay, all right, you're not gay. Cool.
We got it.
It just was a lot. So again, I still stand on what I said of why does he not have queer black friends in this show? I mean, I guess you could technically count Tyler the creator, but he never like fully explicitly said it. I don't even know. Everyone just says it, but he never explicitly like
they
made
say
an
it's in his music.
It is. I think it is. Yeah, you're right. So we're just gonna go with it. But okay. Yeah, so that's the only person we've seen, and I'm really starting to think it's staged because like there ain't no other friends, no other community that's black and queer, nothing. But whatever. So basically, this episode, Jerrod invites Jamar to come to New York and to go on like a tour with him. He's doing a couple shows. I know for sure in Chicago, and I forgot where the other place was. But you know, there was a couple shows, and like he's like, "Hey, come with me on the road. Like you can do some of your sets." But when Jamar comes, it's like he wants Jamar to do the type of comedy that he does. Mm-hmm. Like he, as Jamar calls it, comedy therapy. He's like, I don't want to do that comedy therapy, which is fair. Like it's not really that great anyway to me. So Jamar is like, he's trying to get Jamar to do this and like specifically talk about his father who he's never met. And we learned throughout the show that Jamar was in foster care for like the first 5 years of his life. He ended up having to live with his aunt and extended family for a while and experienced emotional abuse and some physical abuse and stuff like that. And so it just was like I remember that being kind of off-putting. Like, why are you pushing him to do the type of comedy you want? I mean, granted, like the way it looked on the show, his comedy wasn't that great to me either, but like I was like, why are you forcing this man to like sit in a chair and like sit there and like talk and like whatever, you know how he be doing, he sit in a chair like so like
the long pauses,
but you know, and like we're gonna get into that a little bit later anyway, but yeah, I just thought it was really strange. It kind of was giving off the perception of like he was like the mentor, godlike figure who is saving his friend, and you know, Jamar's bombing a lot of his sets, and he's like trying to motivate him to be better. And it just felt very weird. Another thing me and my partner had noticed when we were watching, because she's like into writing, and so she was like, it's interesting that this episode is episode 5 because there's 8 episodes, right? So technically it's like smack dab in the middle. And you know, like the midpoint episode, it's important, right? Like it's a turning point. So you go from him being an asshole to his friends and family based off his anxiety and trauma to now the midpoint is, oh, I'm gonna help my friend, like he's just down and out, like trying to figure it out or whatever. And I'm like, thought that was pretty interesting. And then I think one other nugget that I thought was interesting was like Jamar was probably one of the only people that at this point that had been honest with him besides Anonymous, and was very straightforward and was like talking about his father, but also was like, I wish I had a father to help me figure out like, or like prepare me for how ruthless men were gonna be in my life. And I realized that was you when I roomed with you. Like you were very condescending and I felt like you were always talking down to me. And I was like, that's interesting to say. Like, and I could tell Jerrod probably knew it was true because he was dead quiet. Whatever he's like struck with the truth, the real truth, not the manufactured truth that he tries to convey to us. He's very much like on stuck. How did you feel about this episode, Fran? What did you think about it?
Yes. You mentioning, or that you saying like Kennedy had mentioned, like kind of like the arc of how a series should go and that the midpoint is like super important. I felt the exact same way when you were like, he was kind of like horrible and unsufferable episodes 1 through 4. And then this 5th episode happens and he's like, hold on, something's playing. Is that me?
Oh, sorry, I'm by a street, so it's probably
okay.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
And then we get to episode 5, and he's, like you said, trying to have this like savior complex, like I'm in therapy, and like I need to save this other black man, and but it was wild and so strange, and like I feel like that should have been in like the 2nd episode or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when it came to him finally like saying it plainly and being like, you ain't no Sojourner Truth, you ain't no Harriet Tubman, like I don't care how much therapy you go to, like the way that you speak to me is like incredibly condescending, and you make me feel like I'm just so beneath you. And yeah, I'm glad that he like said it in plain English. I don't really understand any of his friendship dynamics, especially that one, just because like, I mean, I guess that's a good thing. Like you should be able to like obviously say how someone's actions make you feel, and it not ruin your friendship. But like, I just found that amazing that like later on that same episode they're just like flying kites together after he was just like, you're incredibly condescending, and like you think that you think that you're like gonna save me or something, and that's not the case. Like, why you keep trying to force me to like get in touch with this man that I don't know?
Right.
Yeah, I just find that fascinating.
It was very interesting. I didn't understand it either because I think I've noticed that a lot with a lot of his friends and family. Like they keep placating him. Like he'll do fuck shit, and you could tell they're hurt, but they still end up either like forgiving him or even thanking him for the experience, and it's really weird.
So weird.
It's so weird. And what's even more weird is when I did more research. So first thing I did, I went on YouTube and I put in Jamar's name, Jamar Neighbors. You know, he actually has a big following. Like he actually is
I've
known
seen him
in his.
Before this, I've never watched his stand-up, but I've seen him.
I've never seen him before, but then I was like, like he has his own like niche, like he has his own audience. So I felt very misled from first glance off of that because I'm like, you made him seem like he was a zero. Like it's very
that he was just like some Joe Schmo that you added to your tour to open for you, and he's bombing at your shows mainly because his audience is not like Jamar's audience is not Jerrod's audience. Like that's probably 90% of the reason. Well, I won't give him that much credit. I'll give him like 65% of the reason why he was bombing, and then the rest of it is like he's just, you know, toxic male, you know. But I did recognize him the second he put the mohawk on. I was like, I've seen this guy before, but I've never watched his stand-up.
Yeah, me either, and I don't think I'll ever start. But No, I've never really heard of him, but like I was like, okay, cool. Like he actually has an audience. So that was number one. That was like red flag. Then number two, he did an interview with Vulture. And I was reading the article, and he really debunked a lot of the stuff in the show that was either weird or edited wrong, right?
Okay.
So the first thing was like he said when he got to New York and he hopped in the car with Jerrod or whatever to like, you know, go back to the hotel or whatever the fuck. There was cameras in there, so Jamar was like, hey, like, you know, what's up with the cameras? And Jerrod was like really vague. He's like, yeah, Jerrod's really vague. It was like, oh, it's just something for HBO or whatever, and like didn't even expound on it. So that Jamar was just like, oh, okay, did not know it was a whole ass docu-series special, and he was gonna be the main focus of the episode. So that was like, okay,
and his life and his family,
weird, right? So then he was also saying too, like the way Jerrod was trying to push him into like coming into talking about his family and stuff. He's like, it was weird because I've already like confronted those things. I've been to therapy before. Like I already knew a lot of these things. I've come to terms and acceptance a lot of these things. So it just felt kind of weird. But he was like, the therapy, he did appreciate the therapy, and he does like his therapist that he ended up meeting. So that was cool. But still, I just was like, I still feel like there's some forcing involved.
Yeah.
And then also another thing he did say, reiterated like what you said, is that it was Jerrod's tour. So the thing is that Jerrod would go first and he would have Jamar headline. Yeah. So he was like, it's his audience. So it was just weird. And he's like, I didn't even bomb that many times. They edited that way. He was like, maybe twice. But he was like, overall, it wasn't that bad. But he's like, I thought it was weird that he would have me headline and it's his show. Very sus. It was giving frenemy. I'm like, what's going on?
I cannot understand that. What?
It was weird. It's weird.
That makes literally no sense. I mean, I understand, like, maybe from a friend standpoint, like, being like, you know, let me give my friend this opportunity to, you know, headline this show, but it's his tour. Even, like, optics-wise, that doesn't make sense. Why would you bring an audience in expecting for you to be the headliner, and they get this motherfucker backflipping off something with a
making Spider-Man dookies. Making Spider-Man dookies on the damn thing.
Like his whole thing is this like holistic approach to like comedy, and he kind of makes it interactive. And again, I haven't seen like his work that he does on the tour for the show, but it's so like completely different. So
it's completely different.
That's perplexing. I can't find a reason why anyone would do that.
Unless you're trying to sabotage. But that's just me.
That's I mean, it makes no other sense. Like, again, I understand the like, oh, this is my friend, you know, give him this opportunity to headline a few shows, but I have no words.
Exactly, because it's weird as fuck.
It's weird.
Yeah, so that was like really odd. It gave me the feeling of like, that's when I was thinking like, okay, like, Jamar, what is up with you? Like, do you enjoy making things awkward for people? Is it projection of the shame that you have experienced? Like, what is it? So I was kind of leaning more towards shame for some reason, because he struggles with shame, from the sex addiction to coming out to his parents to even acknowledging that he cheats on his boyfriend multiple times. It's like always linked to shame. So that's what I thought at first. Then we go to episode 6. Correction, he is from North Carolina. We had originally said or thought it was Georgia, but really he is from North Carolina. And he goes in this episode, he goes back home because his mom calls him and says that she is sorry and she accepts him for who he is and that she loves him. So he was happy about that, and I was happy for him too. But like good old Jamar fashion, he decides to bring Mike last minute, not really give his family full heads up, and he just makes it uncomfortable for both parties involved. How did you feel watching some of those scenes during those episodes, if you remember?
I will tell you, a lot of the times I'm like doing something else when I put it on. Like I was like either cooking or something, so I didn't even. It made sense as to why it was so uncomfortable. That they didn't know that he was coming, but it's just like, yeah, that sweet guy. It's really hard to hate that guy. His boyfriend. Like you kind of have to be a little bit of a monster to hate him. He's giving them no reason. He's not really. He's not trying to, kind of like hide who he is, quote unquote, to make them more comfortable. I hope I'm making sense. Like he is being his truest self.
He's being himself, but
his
respectable.
Truest self is just a kind, genuine person. So it's really hard to hate him. So yeah. I mean, for all intents and purposes, his parents should be so grateful that a man like that would want to love his son, love their son. But it just, I don't understand how his brain works. Like that is they're already like so loosely accepting Jerrod back into their life, which he didn't have to accept, but he did accept it, and then it just circles back to him showing his father his boyfriend in his drawers. Like there's just like there could have been a more appropriate way to do that, and I'm sure part of him probably knows that they maybe never would have wanted to agree to meet him, and that maybe he kind of had to force it on them. But it's just like, again, it circles back to like he doesn't have to accept their invitation. Like if it's, and which I'm sure you'll get into, if it's going to be that conditional, like I love you as long as you exclude all of these parts of yourself, you don't have to accept that. So that was like the crux of how I felt about it. Like he's such a sweet guy. It's genuinely like almost impossible to hate him. But he does not deserve to have to be like thrown into Jerrod's exposure therapy for his parents. Like I'm pretty sure there was a conversation that he had with Jerrod, his boyfriend, where he was like essentially being like, what was he saying? It was like when it came to his mom, like he was trying to explain to Jerrod, like you don't have to. What was he saying? Do you remember what I'm talking about? Like when his boyfriend was talking to Jerrod about his mom, and like her Christianity and all of that, and just essentially trying to explain to him like. I lost it.
No, you're good.
Was
I
before
think it might have been.
Met. I'm pretty sure it was before they met. I can't remember whatever point I was trying to make, but his boyfriend was trying to like get across to him like your mom's probably never gonna get it, and like you're just gonna have to be okay with that. So yeah. So I again, you said that they're still together. That blows my mind.
They are still together
because he's really so sweet and understanding, and clearly just genuinely loves him. But the situations he puts him in are so unnecessary and so insane.
Yeah, it's actually pretty crazy, and it's really sad because I feel like Mike is just getting the short end of the stick, and I'm pretty sure Mike sees more than we do, and there is nuance and there is grace. Like I don't know where I would be if people didn't have grace on me, but at the same time, I think there's a level of consideration that needs to be held by Jerrod that I don't see it. I don't know who he has it for besides Anonymous. Like that's the only person that I've seen that he's ever really had consideration in how he speaks to them, and how he like that's the only person I've seen. So yeah, I really feel for him, for Mike. I feel for kind of anybody involved with him, because it's like you're gonna get a camera shoved in your face, you're gonna get like made really uncomfortable, and I don't know. I just think there's other ways to do this. I'm not saying that the parents and family shouldn't be absolved for the ways in which they've treated him and haven't been able to let him live his life, but I think there should be more ethical grounds of doing this. And one thing he keeps saying in all these interviews I keep watching is the cameras give him confidence. They give him power to have these uncomfortable conversations. And he alluded to this one situation where, like, if he were to go home for Christmas without the cameras and stuff, like, if he wanted to bring something up, his parents would tell him, or family would be like, just not now, don't talk about that, or like, you know, like, be quiet. And I'm like, okay, is this a pattern that you experienced growing up? Did you feel not heard? Did you feel not nurtured in that way? Like, that's what it kind of was giving. But also, you're 37 years old. I don't think you need to rely on cameras. And if you're doing he said in his interview with Angie Martinez that he goes to psychoanalysis therapy or whatever, like twice a week or like every week. And I was just like, are y'all really working through stuff? Because I don't see any progress. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. Because I'm just like, are we just a narcissist talking to ourselves in this session? Like, what is really going on?
Well, it really like circles back to something that we brought up in the first part of the Jerrod Carmichael breakdown, which is that he's just, and it's like something that's been coming up a lot. I'm on like psychiatrist TikTok, probably not psychiatrist, but therapist TikTok, about like the self-aware patient. Like, he's just entirely too self-aware to really do the work necessary to like get to the point of a breakthrough, I guess. I'm sure he's had breakthroughs. Again, we don't know this man. But where we're at right now, like, it just kind of feels like he's essentially wasting his time and their time, because he's in those rooms and at times he's not entirely truthful, which again, I will confess, we all do it. But he's too self-aware. I don't know how to like describe or give like a textbook definition of that term, but the best way that I could is just like, essentially at this point, he knows what he's doing. He knows in the ways that it's wrong, and that's just kind of where we're at. Like, he has no problem owning up to certain things. Certain things he does have an issue with owning up to, but for the most part, it seems that he's pretty open and honest, for better or worse, with his therapist and then the couples therapy that they were doing. But he's always going to hit this wall because I'm sure there's a part of him that feels like he's always going to know himself better than this therapist ever would. I don't know. I'm hoping making sense, but he's just... No,
it actually makes a lot of sense, because even the way he speaks with other people... I was watching his interview with Jay Shetty, and it was just so, like, funny because he just kept talking. Like, he just loves to talk. I think he likes the sound of his voice, and, like, I don't even think Jay got, like, a word in for real. Like, he would get a word in here or there, like, you know, but I just really feel like Jerrod was really commanding the conversation, and like, he always thinks he already knows what's going on until somebody he respects says no. But yeah, so that's how I feel about it. But I agree. I think he is too self-aware, but also just very like, I don't know how to explain it. He just get on my nerves. I'm sorry. Like, cause I feel like this whole process has been such a range of emotions. Cause at first I was confused, and then I was like weirded out. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this to people you supposedly care about? Then it went into like, okay, I feel empathy. He's obviously going through a lot. But then it went back to like disdain, and now I'm just like, I'm still back at square one. But like,
it really is a cycle.
It's a cycle of love and hate. Like, you just really are just like, yeah. So anyway, I agree though. I think he's definitely too self-aware. Basically for episode 7, we're going into 7. It goes into Mike and Jerrod exploring different relationship structures to try to combat the excessive cheating and sex addiction that Jerrod has. So their therapist suggests threesomes, and so they start and they love it. They enjoy it. It's like very team oriented. They have fun and whatever.
Going
it's
back
good
to back.
Back to back, having a good time, desiring each other. Beautiful. Love is love. I loved it. But then They decide, the therapist like, okay, all right, y'all doing good. Let's go ahead and open it up. Let's open it up. Let's do, you know what, to be safe, let's have some rules, you know, some boundaries. In the two most important rules was, one, when Mike goes out and has, you know, other partners, he has to let Jerrod know after he's done it. Let him know, yes, hey, this is what happened, blah, blah. Then Jerrod has to disclose before he goes out, hey, I'm about to go do this, and this.
Important. Before
he goes out. Now, if I was like an excessive cheater, I'm like, okay, great. Like, yeah, I can go do this. There's no harm. I just literally have to say, hey, babe, I'm going to homeboy's house. Here's the address in case I get abducted. Right? This man couldn't even do that. Had admitted in therapy to the therapist, it was like, yeah, like, I just couldn't do it. And she literally, like, I was so happy that she finally did it and was like, why are you doing this? Because that's literally what we all were thinking, like, why are we here?
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know. No, there's something wrong. So I was talking to my best friend, Liz Putu, amazing digital artist. Aww. We were talking about this. And I was telling her about this, what was going on, because she had watched the first couple episodes and she stopped. So I gave her an update. And, you know, I was kind of on the tip of like, you know what, Liz, like, I think he experiences shame. Maybe the sex addiction is shame from having to hide, be in the closet for so long, not being nurtured by his parents who don't really, like, you know, like, maybe he feels like he has to get a rise out of them. And she's like, I think it's about control. I said, what? And she was like, think about it. He's manipulating the people around him. He wants to get a reaction because, like, if you're in a non-monogamous relationship or a relationship that's open or poly, like, there's no reason to lie. There's no reason to cheat, but yet you still found a way. So it might be because if Mike or his partner isn't responding or reacting the way he wants, he's going to try something different to get a rise out of him. I'm like... That's interesting because I feel like that applies to every single person in his life, from Jamar to his mother to his father to Jess to the friend he's supposed to be the best man for. He does things intentionally to get a reaction, but they don't give it to him.
Yeah,
they really don't. Every single one of them, maybe besides Jamar, who's like literally confused like the rest of us, like. No one gives him a reaction. So I wonder, is that lonely? Is he searching for that? Is there a part of him, his inner child, that's like, hey, I just want you to do something. Because when I'm trying to do something, you don't emote. You don't give a reaction. You're just like, oh, that's Jerrod. And you just keep moving. Is that it? So that was interesting to me. And it kind of tracked because I feel like also not only do people around him don't really react, they end up forgiving him, or they end up saying, hey, thank you for being a jerk to me. So it's odd because even with Jamar, at the end of his interview, he was thanking Jerrod for the experience, and I'm like, really? So yeah, so that was interesting. And then episode 8 is the final episode. It basically just ends with his mom comes to visit, comes to New York, and they get really good one-on-one time. And it was really good. I think it was reflective for the both of them. They end up getting to go have therapy with a queer black therapist, which I thought was very interesting. And I appreciated it, but I also felt like I wonder why he doesn't have any like black therapists of his own, but he always has black therapists for like his black family or like people, which I thought was interesting that I picked up on. But I appreciated that they were able to like talk things out because I think it did make a difference. And then it ends with his mom and Mike in the kitchen talking back in their North Carolina home, and that made me emotional. I was like, okay, this is sweet. But was it worth the roller coaster of awkwardness? I don't think so. Marz, how did you feel about it?
That last episode, those last 2 episodes are very was the mom in the 7th episode?
No, she was in the 8th. She was in the last one, the 8th one.
I want to circle back to the poly thing, but I'm gonna talk about the mom episode. Yeah, I cried. I mean, I can't imagine that type of dynamic because again, I no relationship with my father, but my mother, ally. Like, she couldn't be bothered about what it is, who I want to love. You know what I'm saying? As long as they ain't beating on me, as long as they ain't been in and out of jail, they're kind, they have manners. She don't care. So
Right.
to have such a close, like, he was such a mama's boy, and then to grow up and come out and then immediately lose that relationship that had to have changed his brain chemistry to a certain degree. Like, I couldn't imagine my mom not wanting to be in my life or deliberately putting space in between us because of who I choose to love. So that conversation with, like, them in the park and him trying to get her to understand that her love comes with conditions, and her basically being like, well, you can either accept this love or not. And then also that bit where he, like, agreed to pray with her, and she essentially tried to, like, pray away, help
Oh
him
my
pray
god,
away
that
the
was
gayness.
crazy. That was
And
crazy.
then him saying, like, he immediately regretted it. Like, it's just, I feel like he's just kind of throwing anything at the wall and seeing what sticks, because he just loves her so much. Because, like,
Yeah.
that's his mom. Like, you can see how much love, like, in those old home videos, like, it tore me to pieces. Like, I couldn't take it. Like, I could not imagine having space or separation from my mother because she didn't accept that part of me. And that's, like, my essentially, not my entire identity, but a huge part of my identity in my life and who I choose to love. Like, it's not going to change. You can't pray it away, you can't ignore it away. Like, that is who he is. He is Jerrod, and he is this comedian, and but he's also gay. Like, they're all one and the same. So that was really, really rough to watch. But again, as toxic as he may be, his, like, sticking to his guns in certain conversations with his parents and not letting them, like, not doing the typical black child thing, which is just, like, shutting up or shutting down and accepting whatever it is that they say because they're the adult. Like, it is refreshing to watch someone, like, not hold back their emotions, but also be able to, like, so well, like, articulate themselves under certain conditions. Because somebody like me, like, in certain situations with certain elders, like, I will either get too heightened to where I'm just, like, so emotional that I can't articulate myself, or I'll just completely shut down and, like, not say what I wish I could have said. So part of me is, like, very, like, proud of him for being able to do that and still maintain a level of respect, because at the end of the day that is his mother. But sometimes I don't mean jack. Like, the people can disrespect you at regardless of your familial bonds. But I wanted to touch back on the poly thing. Because you had mentioned when you spoke to Liz, hey Liz, that she had mentioned the control aspect of, like, why he continues to step outside of the relationship and do things even though they agreed upon it, even though they signed these little sheets of paper with the rules, and they spoke about it in their couples therapy. He still continues to do whatever he wants to do. There was remember that bit in the episode where, once Michael decided to step out, he got all, like, weird about it.
He freaked out.
He got all weird about it, and from his point of view, he talks about how, like, he's like, the way that Michael looks up at me, like, when we're intimate, like, I couldn't imagine him giving that look to anyone else. That's him, like, stroking his ego. But Anonymous steps in, Bo Burnham, Anonymous steps in and is basically, like, explains to him, like, you view your relationship through a heteronormative lens. Like, you see Michael as the girl and you're the man. And I'm sure it stems back to his, his mother and his father's relationship. And I'm sure that has, bled into it subconsciously. But he literally sees himself as the man in the relationship and thinks that it's okay for him to do the things that he does because that's just what men do. But it's like, it's weirder when Michael does it because he's, like, the woman or the mom. Like, it's really, there's so many layers, and it's really kind of strange when you unpack it. But, like, what did you think about that point of, like, him viewing his relationship from like a heteronormative lens.
Yeah, it definitely hit. Like, I hadn't really thought of it in that way until Anonymous, aka Bo Burnham, had said it that way. And I appreciated that, and I think it really stunned Jerrod because he had to confront the fact that he was actually just being his father, like being the person that he probably hated for a long time because or once he realized, you know, what his dad was really doing. And it's like, it's that turning point where you're like, sometimes you just don't want to be your parents. Like, sometimes you exhibit traits that you're like, oh shoot, like those are traits that I don't want to inherit. And that could be a very sobering feeling, very like, dang, like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe it. Like, the one thing I was trying not to do, I am. You know what I mean? And so I can empathize with that. But also, I'm really hoping that after that talk with Anonymous, aka Bo Burnham, that he reflects on that, because I think a lot of his relationships and even his work is based on the heteronormativity that he's still clinging on to, because he's still coming to terms with his identity. So which I can empathize with too. It's tough, like figuring out who you are at this big old age. It's not fun. But I think also like he just needs to do better, and he needs to be more introspective and like stop allowing his ego to cloud his judgment, because I think he's smart, and I think deep down he knows the truth of what he's doing, but he's choosing to sink into his ego because it's easier. That's what it feels like. So, but yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, so y'all, we recapped all of that. It was great, but after watching all the episodes, I still couldn't stop. I was like, I need to figure out more about this man. Something's going on. There's something that's itching me, and I gotta scratch it. I gotta figure out what's going on, right? So I went and watched his old stand-up. I watched Love at the Store. That was like one of the first ones I watched, because he an interviewer referenced it in an interview, and he just really like disregarded it, because the interviewer was like, yeah, like, you know, you opened up with a Trayvon Martin joke, and he was like, oh yeah, I was a contrarian back then or whatever. And I said,
which was crazy, by the way. That joke is crazy.
It's so crazy. Like, I've debated whether I want to even say it online, because it's actually disgusting. So out of respect for Trayvon, I'm not. But I just was like, what? So that was like, when I actually went back and watched that, and I watched like the whole special, I regretted it, because I was like, this is actually one of the worst specials I've ever seen, because it was like, you know, those like black conservatives who think they're being really ingenuitive and like have these really interesting takes and shock value talking points, but really they're just being white conservatives and saying the same things that their great grandparents have been saying because they don't like black people. That's what I was giving. It was being a mouthpiece. It was giving anti-black. It was giving anti-everything to get shock value. And granted, like, I know people evolve, and I know that things change, and this was done in 2014, so that was 10 years ago. So people's opinions can change, and if he really was battling internalized homophobia, it actually makes sense watching back how he was in this show, what he may have been battling, and why he was projecting all of these different things. But I think the anti-blackness that he specifically portrays in a lot of his acts, before he decided to become a comedy therapist, it really goes and shows more about him, his struggles, and like what he thinks about himself, is what I gathered from it. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all, and I thought it was very convenient that it's not as known now. I feel like it hurts the brand, for sure. So I think he tries to definitely push away from it, especially since he's now on the progressive tip or whatever. But it just, even back then, like he is now, I feel like he's always pandering to white audiences, to get their approval and let them get a laugh in, and to the expense of himself and the black community. what was a quote? I don't know if I wrote the quote down. It was something about community, but essentially, it's just, yeah. If I had the choice to watch it on my own again, like, I would never watch it again. Like, I only really watched it for this research, because it just research purposes only. It just, yeah. How do you feel about that, Marz? Because I know I sent you a couple clips and stuff like that. Like, how did you feel being a comedian? Like, what's your perspective on this?
Yeah. So, yeah, his early stand-up 10 years ago, he would have been, like, my age, which, me being 27, couldn't imagine saying those things. I'm just gonna say it. I understand that everybody has a journey and that everyone, you know, can learn and grow, and there's always room to learn, essentially. But those jokes, like you said, were so pandering. It was so blatant.
Bad.
It was so blatant. Like, it gave, like that kid you knew in middle school that was, like, always having the need to tell a racial joke.
Yeah.
That's what it gave.
Yeah.
Like, but that kid, from my history, like, from my knowledge, that kid was always white. So that, like, was really crazy to see all that coming out of a black man's mouth. It was crazy.
On purpose.
Like,
on
y'all,
purpose.
like, if you must, we will link, like, the sets that we're talking about. If you must know what the jokes were, honestly, you'll honestly be so better off without it, because the punchline isn't even worth the stress.
It's
really
not even worth. It's not even funny,
really
bro. It's not even close to being funny.
It's not worth the work. It isn't. But if you must, we will link it below. But yeah, those earlier sets, from a amateur comedian standpoint, in your late 20s, it's hard to justify. It is.
Yeah.
It's
it is.
To justify. Like, it just circles back to, like, punching down versus punching up. Like, it's just such a strange choice, artistically and just optics wise. Like, it's just such a strange. It was such a strange joke. Those are such weird jokes.
It was weird.
It's such, like, edgelord comedy. Like, it's just so lame to me. It's so lame.
Yeah.
Miles in the chat. Listen, if you need to see those sets, just go back.
Just go on HBO.
Go on YouTube.
Go on HBO.
Yeah, go on HBO. Go on YouTube. This was, 2014. You'll find it. We have chosen to stay on the side of the community, and we're not gonna link you guys. I'm sorry.
No, because I'm not
actually
endorsing that. Like, you can go watch at your own risk, but it literally is just like, it wasn't even worth it. And I think the thing that frustrated me it wasn't worth it. And the thing that frustrated me the most is knowing that, like, the Love at the Comedy Store was the stand-up that helped catapult him to what he is now. After he did that, then he got greenlit for the Carmichael Show. Yeah. So, like, literally, it's like, again, pandering to these white audiences with self-deprecating anti-blackness gets you to where you want to be. And I noticed a lot of it clearly worked, but also too, another thread I saw in a lot of his comedy, he's so elitist, and I think he had always wanted to be that. Like, you could just see it, you could feel it, you could see it, and it's like, I'm gonna do whatever in order to be in the good graces of this audience, and it worked. So yeah, it worked for him. So we're gonna circle back and talk about Anonymous. So Anonymous is rumored to be Bo Burnham. Now, I have never heard of Bo Burnham ever before until I watched the show and read an article. Marz had to had to educate me. Marz, can you please educate the class? Let us know who Bo Burnham is, because I know I've never heard of him until this research. Which
is perfectly normal for most Black Americans. I'm a theater kid. I was a band nerd. And, you know, we both grew up in suburbia. I mean, at least when we moved down here to Florida, we were thrust into suburbia.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of just like what I was immersed in. Okay, so just give me grace on that. I was like 14, 15 when I found Bo Burnham. I was very young, unsupervised on the internet. And yeah, I found him when he was still on the internet, when he was still making videos online. And being being a current band nerd theater kid, I thought that this was like the pinnacle of comedy. I'm like, oh my god, this young guy, he's like breaking the mold, like he's like, you know, like as if there weren't singing comedians before. You know, like I'm like, oh my god, like this, no one is doing comedy like this white man. And yeah, I had a pretty strong hyperfixation. Like I can remember quite a few of his older songs and stuff. But then I grew up, I became an adult, and I completely fell off of Bo Burnham, didn't check in with him, didn't even know when Inside came out, which was when quarantine hit. I didn't even know that he was planning to, like, that he had, one, taken a hiatus, and two, that he was planning to start a tour as soon as lockdown, like, had happened across the country, which is hilarious. I didn't even know. And I just saw it. It was just, like, on the homepage of my Netflix, and I just watched it, and Inside is, I still to this day feel that it's one of the most ambitious and well put together overall pieces of work. But yeah, that's my background with Bo Burnham. That's why I, as a Black person, know who he is. That's just, I'm not gonna explain myself anymore, okay? But just know that I know. And I do.
No, we appreciate you, Frank, because yes, as a Black American, I had no idea who this man was. Like, when I really looked at it, I was like, whoa, there's a whole, like, you know when you just discover something new and you're like, everybody knew about this? Like, yeah. I had no idea. I think what hit me was when I went on his Instagram and, like, all of my friends were following him. I'm like, where have I been? Like, I just really was flabbergasted. So, you know, I go into it. I'm like, okay, Bo Burnham, like, who is this guy? Whatever. I just kind of know that, like, he's produced a lot of the stuff that Jerrod has done. So, like, he produced this show, reality show. Yes. Jerrod Carmichael reality show. And then, you know, after I asked Marz about it, because I'm like, Marz, what is this? And then she told me, so I went and watched Inside. And honestly, like, Inside has to be one of the best things I've ever watched. And I was just like, it's pretty incredible. This is amazing. Like, knowing that he did all this by himself. And what I really appreciated was how genuine and he was about the state of the world, and how complicit he as a white man is in being a part of this world, and like causing these atrocities and just making fun of it. And like it was really, really great, because, you know, sometimes when I watch like art like that, it kind of makes me like, it's like really sarcastic, and I can't really get into it because sarcasm is not my thing. But the way he breaks it down to where anybody can understand it, and he's a really great musician. Like, he could sing, that man playing that piano, I'm like, this is genius. And so I don't know, I think that Jerrod made me a Bo Burnham fan, and I really had to sit down and like come to terms with that, because I was like, how did it come from me analyzing this whole man's life to becoming the biggest fan of this white man? I'm watching video essays. I'm like, I'm really getting into it. I'm like, this man is good. I want more. I want to learn more. You know, I watched his old videos that were problematic. Some of them, I was just like, bro, it's cringy, the heck? But he was. It's cringy, but he actually was young. Unlike Jerrod, who was making these statements at like 27. 15.
Yeah.
Very different. He was actually a kid. Different. Very, very different. So watching Inside was really cool, because I felt like there was a lot of truth in it that actually his friend Jerrod should have listened to. One of my favorite quotes was, It's the part where he is doing reaction videos of himself. He keeps doing the reaction video, and so he says, I'm criticizing my initial reaction for being pretentious, which is honestly, it's a defense mechanism. I'm so worried that criticism will be levied against me that I levy it against myself before anyone else can. And I think that, I'm self-aware about being a douchebag. It'll somehow make me no less of a douchebag, but it doesn't. And so I thought that was really poignant. And then he ends it with, self-awareness does not absolve anybody of anything. And I just was like, wow, because I think that just summed it up. Like, Jerrod, I think what I've realized in a lot of his interviews, he's like, I'm the truth police. My boyfriend always says I'm the truth police. I'm never going to not tell the truth, right? Even though he lies by omission, but hey, whatever your definition is, right? But the thing is that, like, he thinks his self-awareness absolves him from the things that he does. Yeah. But it's still, just because you're honest about being a jerk does not make it better that you're a jerk. And, like,
still the same jerk.
And I think still the same jerk. And so I'm like, that's why I think it's interesting that him and Bo are such good friends. Because I wonder, because it's like, Bo, like, seems more self-aware, but in a way of consideration and being genuine and understanding nuance. And like, I'm like, why aren't you rubbing off on your friend? And then also, why are you producing stuff that your friend does that's problematic? Because he also was the producer for Love at the Store. And I think he helped to produce 8 as well, where he was also denying climate change. It was a lot. God.
It just gets worse and worse.
Like, anyway, so I wanted to point that out because it just was like, okay, like, Bo, you're amazing. I actually would listen to you forever. But also, why are you aligning yourself with these things, these type of people? And, like, I just feel like there's more responsibility if you are aware of the ways you're implicit. Why are you not aware of the ways he's implicit by some of the really grotesque things that he is saying? Like, it's not even, like, cute, it's egregious. So I thought that was interesting, and I was trying to find, like, more clarity on it. I watched one of my favorite YouTubers, his name's FD Signifier, and he came up with amazing, and he came up with the best term for what Bo Burnham, the art that Bo Burnham makes, which is called white liberal performative art. And he describes it as any art form that evokes and presents a worldview that is intrinsically white, intrinsically liberal, and at some level is very self-aware of this fact. But and it engages in and comments on the space, and in turn presents deep philosophical questions. Now, I think the thing about white liberal performative art is it's really great because, like, wow, like, we really wanted white people to acknowledge the things going on in the world, and now they are. But the thing is, for me anyway, it's the follow through, right? So it's like, what are you really doing to help the earth besides just talking about, oh yeah, you know, this happens and this happens, but you're not really acknowledging the problem to the way of fixing it. Like, you're an executive producer of multiple Netflix specials, and, like, you're still producing stuff that is, like, detrimental to different communities of color, to the state of the world. I mean, yes, people can have their different opinions, and I'm not saying you have to, like, change your friend's opinion, but, like, at what point is free speech, quote unquote, detrimental to the community? And also, too, another thing that FD Signifier had brought up is, like, black people have had to deal with the knowledge that the world is trash all of our lives for generations. So the fact that you are now coming into it and we're supposed to applaud you for that, it just seems like a lot. Yeah. And how do you feel about that, Marz?
Yeah, no, definitely not gonna applaud a fish for swimming. You had brought up him being a executive producer on a lot of Jerrod's or a lot of very similar works. My like me jumping into his brain for half a second with the knowledge of knowing who he was when I was younger, part of me thinks that it's probably just him being like art is art, and you know, wanting the art to exist as it is. If he is anonymous, and throughout the show he was almost loudly protesting it to even exist, like for it to ever be seen, for it to ever hit air, but he persisted on anyway. And if it is Bo, like that's his friend, and him wanting to be able to help him produce literally that art. So I think maybe that could be an aspect where he's coming from it. But at the end of the day, I completely understand the standpoint where it's like, okay, you've done all of this work to get to this point. You're understanding systemic racism and how the world works in favor of you as a white man, and your inclusion in that, and all of these things, and all of those things are very good. But now it's just like, we've hit this wall. It's like, well, what's next? What are you actively doing in your community and outside of it to change that narrative, to help? And it can't start with, I help my black friend make a comedy special, or I help my black friend produce this reality show. Like, yeah, it's you know, the bottom line is that with white, what was the term again? White
liberal performative art.
Yes. Yeah, white liberals will always disappoint you at the end of the day. And that was kind of like where I got to. Like, once I grew up, I was like, oh, he's still a white man. Like, yes, he was like a very one of my favorite comedians when I was so much younger, and you know, Inside is still an incredible standalone piece of work. But he's still a white man, and white men are gonna white men in the same way that white women are gonna white women. Like, they can only get so far when it comes to their own activism. So yeah, that's me trying to sit in the mind of someone. And then you were saying how you know, how are they friends? And I feel like it's in the same way that him and Tyler are friends. Like, Tyler's not the best dude, you know, like, and Bo is like, you know, he was into edgier comedy for a period of time as well. So it makes sense that they, you know, get along. It makes sense why he likes Jerrod, because he pushes the envelope, and he, you know, says all these left field uncomfortable things, and is super vulnerable, and takes a different approach to the way that he does his comedy. If I had to excuse it, I would assume that Bo views it from the artistic standpoint, and is not really taking into account how communities are affected by that art. I doubt that it's lost on him, because anyone can see that it doesn't take years of understanding race and you know, understanding all of that in this country to get that he is like making strange choices when it comes to his comedy. But I don't know. That those are my thoughts. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I definitely like the point of, like, you know, art is art, which like I definitely think I've always debated that point, because like I just differ. Like, I don't believe in full censorship, but I do also believe in, like, if something's really detrimental to like a huge amount of group of people, like, there's no point in really showing that. And I just think it's interesting what is decided to be platformed and what isn't, because it's like we talked about before, why don't comedians critique systems more than just individuals? And that's my issue. So yeah. And also another issue I have with this is, like, you know, art is great, but what if the art isn't that great, right? Ooh. Like, reality show, I think it gave good, like, talking points to a degree, but I think there is a reason why it went from a 9 p.m. slot on a Friday to 11 p.m. slot.
Did it?
It did. I remember I used to watch it, because we used to watch it every Friday night, and then I was like, where is it? When's it coming on? And I had to Google, and then I realized it comes on 11. I'm like, that's interesting. Maybe some stuff came up, but usually, especially if it's on streaming, I don't know. It just felt kind of weird.
Yeah.
And I realized just from the style of comedy that Jerrod does and who he decides to align with and who he respects, I feel like he actually may want to participate in white liberal performative art. Like, parts of me feels like he really would love to do that type of art. And it comes out, and there's a lot of his older work where he's doing stuff that he, as a black man, he's saying certain things and trying to act like it's not a big deal. And I think maybe he thinks he's transcended race to a degree. Like, you know, when you like see people that get that amount of money and they're like, oh, like, I'm not black, I'm OJ. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay. But I think the thing that I think Jerrod's missing to actually fully commit to white liberal performative art is him being white. He's not white. And it's never going to transition. And so I partially think that's why reality show didn't go as deep as it could have, and it kind of was shallow in a sense because he wasn't acknowledging one of the biggest parts of his identity, which is his blackness. Like, he didn't fully go into it. Like, he kind of like hinted at it. It was kind of just already known from his family, and as a black person you can see and understand the threads just by seeing the interactions. But I feel like he actively tries to just kind of be colorblind with things, especially when it comes to him, and not acknowledge the ways in which the systems of racism has really affected his life to the point where, like, his mother can't accept him, and, like, you know what I'm saying? And you're making slave play jokes. Like, you are not white, and you never will. And as much as you try to subscribe to white liberal performative art, it's just not going to be there. And I think he ended up losing an audience because I feel like white audiences couldn't fully relate to it. I think we definitely couldn't relate to it. And so it just left like an open pool of just like, okay, what is this? What is the point of this? And yeah, I think that was the biggest issue, and why reality show was good to a point, but it couldn't fully follow through. Yeah. And I would love for him to like dig more into that so that he can make, to me, work that I would really vibe with. But, you know, if this is style, if it's making him money, all power to him, but it's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, I'm still like you in this weird limbo where there are parts of this show that are so out there and so crazy that I respect it, but then there's so many choices made that I just can't get behind. Like, he's just not the kind of guy that I would want to co-sign, that I would want to continue to see just based off of the actions that he chose deliberately to show on this show. Like, so many of this stuff I would have never known had he not chosen to deliberately show. And again, it's that, like, his whole, like, he has this quote that he says where it's like, only truth or whatever. That's all that matters. And I get it. I get this, like, I get the crux of the show, like the vulnerability, it's fascinating, and it's tormenting to a degree. And it's kind of like one of those, like, you just can't look away, you know? Yeah. Like, we were all kind of like, those of us that didn't really know Jerrod that well, we were kind of like strapped in against our will, because it's like, I can't leave now. I gotta know what happens next. Yeah. But then, again, because of the things that he deliberately chose to show, and the things that he deliberately chose not to show, it just makes me not really want to know more about him at this point. But from an artistic standpoint, this show it's incredible. It's heartbreaking. It's frustrating. I have to give him his dues. I mean, this is a ballsy thing to do. Not many people would be ready and willing to have a lens on their entire life. Now, the rest of his family that were unwilling participants and friends that weren't really told the full extent of what they were getting into, not cool, kind of crazy. I at the end of it, it's just you don't really know how to feel. Yeah. And maybe that's what he wanted. He wanted this, essentially. He wanted people to have these conversations and to talk about it. That's like his whole thing. He leaves so much up to interpretation for this purpose. because he has like you said, he's kind of alienated any sort of strong, prominent black audience, as well as alienating quite a bit of a white audience as well. And he's kind of left with this, like he kind of needs this to a certain degree. He needs these conversations to happen because intrigue is, like, a huge part of, like, why anyone got into it anyway. Like, that first episode, like, going viral, like, him and Tyler, like, that, it's the intrigue. It's the, what is this show? It's, like, because he has no set audience, like, he kind of is reliant on conversations like this. Obviously, you know, we're still up and coming and we're still working on it, but you know, it was just so fascinating, and I still don't know how to think or how to feel about him, and I'm sure he likes it that way.
That's it. No, that's a beautiful way to end it. I totally agree. Well, Marz, that was Jerrod Carmichael Part 2. I am literally physically, emotionally exhausted. I'm drained. I knew so much against my will, but I'm glad we discovered so much and learned about so much. I'm glad I'm now a Bo Burnham fan. I really liked Inside.
So funny to me. A new Bo Burnham fan in 2024 is so fascinating.
I'm here. I'm ready for the ride. I'm ready for when he wants to pop up and do some weird, mysterious shit.
It'll be a minute if he decides to do anything.
I think it's going to be faster than we think. I'll just selfishly just like, please.
It's going to be a minute. He's been, like, radio silent. He did this one movie that was so incredibly disappointing. I don't know if you ever saw it. Yeah, sorry. I don't know if you ever saw it. But the crux is this woman that essentially pretends to be, like, a drunk girl walking out of a club and, like, deliberately lets men take her home so that she can, like, beat their ass.
Oh, shit.
Because they're, like, predators. But it doesn't end the way you think.
Damn.
It's called Promising Woman or something like that. Miles,
he directed it, you think?
I think he stars in it, but I think he was a part of it to that degree somewhat. I think he might have been a producer or something like that, but he is, like, he plays the woman that, like, is, like, this, like, vigilante ass kicker. He's, like, her boyfriend. Yeah, but again, incredibly disappointing. You'll find out why if you just. I'm pretty sure it's called Promising Woman. So there's a word that I'm missing, but look up Promising Woman, Bo Burnham, you'll find it. But yeah, other than that, I have not seen anything else that he's been in since I was, like, 12.
We'll be waiting patiently.
Listen, if it's another special, like something that I could watch from home, I'll watch it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right, y'all. This was FEMMES LRG presents Femininity and Jerrod Carmichael Part 2. Please make sure to like, share with your friends, subscribe, and please comment how this made you feel, because I know I've gone through a lot. All my feelings I just poured out to you. I don't think I can talk about him no more. I'm going to try to, like, clean my YouTube feed so I can get back to reality shows. You got to
reset your algorithm.
I gotta reset it because I just keep getting more of his interviews. So, y'all, just comment what you think. Comment what you feel. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we will see y'all next week.
Bye.